Hi everyone, my name is Eileen Lowry. I'm excited to be here today. This is my first API days, not my first time speaking on stage, hence calling an audible. We're not going to go with slides. I'm really pleased to have Aravind here with me from Tapestry. We're going to do a bit more fireside chat, so we'll sit down. I've got a few things that I will at least open it up with, right, which are slides that you were going to see that you don't need to see because it was all text, and you're just going to take pictures of text. Rather, you can hear me talk, right? So, first and foremost, we're here at API Days. What's going on in the API world, right? What's happening in the industry? And you heard a little bit of this from David. Hopefully, you all had a chance to hear him speak earlier this morning. And you heard a lot about, the shift to digital transformation. I thought he did a great job of today, the as-is and how people have been thinking about transformation and using APIs to really how the world is evolving and what they should do. And that's where we're seeing that huge shift as well to digital. Digital's not new, right? I think we all know that. You're all engrossed in your phones. I can see half of you on your phones right now, right? Digital consumes you. It consumes all of us, right? And that's been on a very upward trajectory for the last decade, right? Just like APIs weren't new. It's that transformation of now living in that world versus much more of the brick and mortar world, right? And irony that I use that analogy given we've got a retailer on stage with me, right? And it's only increasing, right? So that's trend number one. Digital shift is increasing. Number two is all around the complexity, right? You're building new applications. You just heard about a new platform, in the last talk. You've all built even more applications in the last 18 to 24 months by going from being in person to going digital and needing new ways in which you're all interacting. So what is happening then? What is the result of more digital, more applications, more complexity in your organizations? Two things. One, you have skill gaps, right? I've never heard anyone say that they have more people than they can manage with all the different projects that they have, right? It's the opposite. And it's only grown in the last 18 to 24 months because people have choice, right? They can choose, I don't want to do that anymore because there's all of these other opportunities that they can go work through. So now you're stuck with a bunch of new applications, spaghetti, kind of bring that all together. How do you expose that? How do you actually continue to grow your ecosystem? And then secondly is the fact that you have people that are actually trying to take advantage of that, right? And they are trying to actually hack away and find those endpoints that you've created and go after that. And that's where obviously security and governance becomes extremely important. And an interesting stat that we saw from a Verizon report was that, there's an increase overall of web application attacks, and it's now consuming 39% of all breaches in 2021. So think about that. You've created more applications, you've created complexity, you have less people that are skilled, and now you've got more people breaching your web applications. That becomes a digital nightmare, right? And it becomes quite, daunting as far as how are you going to go after that? How are you going to ensure that whether you're a bank or a retailer or a healthcare company, ensuring that your business is secure with all of those APIs that you were excited to grow, your business with in that ecosystem. Hence the need for a strong API management solution, right? The need to have that full visibility, right, across your estate. What is going on? Where can you leverage existing APIs? Where have you seen change management happening with those APIs? And yet having some semblance of management over that so that it's not just complete sprawl, right? And that someone over in one part of your business is using version 2 and someone else is using version 5. And then when someone tries to do something with one another, they're completely incompatible, right? So that becomes extremely important, and being able to manage across those different versions, who's using what, who is exposed to what API, all extremely important for what you need in an API management solution. And then last but not least is that security vulnerability that I talked about, ensuring that you have that management and control over what is going on. How can you ensure put different policies in place so that you can manage and make sure that Department A and Department B have the proper controls in place as to who can work with, manipulate those different APIs across your business. So again, going from what are we seeing in the industry to what do you actually need to ensure when you're working with your APIs and making sure that you have that strong, robust, secure API management solution. And if I had the slides, you'd see examples across all the different industries, right? David even showed a few across finance, healthcare. He even specifically named a few companies. And we see the same, right? We've worked across all different industries at IBM, from finance to healthcare to automotive, you name it, we've worked with them. And honestly, that's why I brought Tapestry up, which is not a bank, right? It is not a healthcare company, because as much as we all know that, banks run the world, at the same time, they don't have the money to move around if they don't have people like you and I actually buying goods, right? Supply, demand. That's fundamentally, how the world economy has grown. I have a bunch of flowers. I want to sell flowers. I want to buy flowers because it makes me happy and pretty, right? Supply, demand. Now we get into higher end retail, right? And who doesn't want, lovely purses and scarves? And of course we all do, maybe for your partner as well. And so that's where Tapestry comes into play. We had a lovely video to introduce Tapestry, but in the essence of not having the slides and maybe taking a seat, Aravind, I'd love to have you just do a quick intro of what is Tapestry, what are they doing, and then we'll get into actually your solution itself.
So thank you so much, Eileen, and happy to be here and participate. So Tapestry is a group of companies. So you probably heard of Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. So we were Coach Inc. for the longest time, and then as we started to acquire brands with Kate Spade and Stuart Weitzman, the umbrella company which was formed was Tapestry. So that's what it is. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the brands, and the video would have been lovely, but it's okay. We'll maybe put it somewhere else or send a link or something.
So obviously, retail are many different brands under the umbrella of Tapestry. What was your business challenge, and how did you actually end up with the conclusion that an API-led sort of strategy and approach for integration was the thing to help you with that business challenge?
Yeah, so we had multiple disparate platforms across our integrations landscape. So you can imagine for the people, this is a technical forum, so you have file transfers, you have transformations, you have messaging layers. And so with so many different platforms, so many different applications, different owners, right? All these are from many times from different companies. So it introduces complexity in so many ways, right? One is from just supportability. The other one is just the SLA standpoint, and then just ownership and accountability, and just bringing so many different players together to solve one particular problem. So we realized that, and it's been a journey, and we adopted the IBM Cloud Platform for Integration, CP4I, and now we are consolidating all these technologies into one single platform. And it's been great so far, and I'll share some examples as well. So with that, we are centralizing our support workforce, our commitment and partnership to a company like IBM, so we just have one point, one face to deal with. And of course, just building the future, right? I mean, the platform itself lends itself to a lot of the new modern capabilities which we didn't have before. So those are some of the benefits we're looking at.
No, that's great. And as you said, the platform itself has a lot of different capabilities in it. And when we're looking at an API-led sort of strategy, what were really the specific features, though, that you needed in order to really help you accomplish, right, and tackle that business challenge that you stated earlier?
Right. So the API-led architecture, as many have shared, and you probably are aware, really kind of reduces the complexity from an endpoint configuration. So whether it is external systems calling our internal APIs or our own systems which are internal to the landscapes, accessing whatever it is, master data, transactional data, or other, security or logs, whatever it is. So it provides that framework to have the endpoint standard, and then we are able to build the complexity in the middle layer. So all the translations, all the different types of hooks that we have to build is happening in the middleware. And so the endpoints remain pretty much unchanged, and the calling functions are kind of outside of the complexity. So it really helps from that standpoint. That is one. The other one is really scalability. Like I said, what we were doing earlier is we just used to increase servers, right? The capacity of servers. So when business was high, we used to just, add more servers, more CPUs, more hardware, just throw memory at it. But now with this architecture, we have a more containerized approach. So we're able to scale on demand. And so that flexibility was crucial, right? Because you can imagine in retail, we are seasonal, right? There is a Mother's Day kind of a situation where you have some peak demand. But really, September, October onwards, really peak season begins until Thanksgiving. It's really peaking. And so those 3-4 months, we are able to scale on demand, and we are able to deliver a lot with this kind of architecture. We didn't have that flexibility and agility before. So this is super helpful. And correspondingly, your demand on the platform, because everything is pay by use, right? We are on AWS, so that reduces as well, because when you're not using the resources, you don't pay, which is kind of the new model, right? So those are some benefits that are really driving this architecture.
And you talked about seasonality. You talked a lot about introducing a lot of new endpoints. I mentioned, security, breaches happening more frequently on just different web applications. But were there specific elements, because you're also integrating them with payment providers, and fraud is extremely high at that point. Were there anything specific or unique elements to actually integrating with those fraud providers, whether it was taking advantage of security or governance, that you had to make sure you got right for your solution, or what could you do to take advantage of those capabilities?
Yeah, so definitely. So the architecture lends itself to various security methodologies. So we have certificate-based authentication, we have whitelisting capabilities, we have various other, just known endpoints, and so we have, of course, the front-end firewalls and everything restricting traffic. But from an API standpoint itself, when we integrate, for example, to a fraud service, right? And then those services are typically external. So we call typically like a count or a signified or forter. These are some prominent fraud services out there. And you can imagine from a retail standpoint, this has a very, very critical, this is a very critical component to us. So right from the time a purchase is made, a fraud check is made to ensure that it is a valid person, a valid account that is trying to make a purchase. So starting from there, all through the journey, right? So at various points, the fraud checks are enabled. And not just from an e-commerce standpoint, also from a customer service, call center standpoint. When there is a phone order, immediately a fraud check is done as well, right? And also, interestingly, returns, right? So, for example, I could just buy something and return and then get money back, right? So those type of frauds are also very, very prominent. So we see those kind of patterns as well. Well, I bought some goods, I try to return something else, get the money back, and then I vanish, right? So lots of such things are also happening. So at every transactional touch point, when it comes to credit card or issuing an appeasement like a merchandise gift card or another alternate product, we are invoking fraud services. And these services are typically external. And what we have learned is it's a journey, right? Because you start with one thing and you study the performance, and you might have to change. We have kind of, we have tinkered with multiple of these, and we are going through selection process. And it's a journey, because you start with one and then you learn and then you try and implement. So with the API architecture, what happens is you kind of, the platform and the calling and all that gets kind of a little bit under the hood, because the front-end API that we call from a order management system or from the website or from a call center application, they call an API, and the back end, we are able to switch to different fraud providers and study the behavior, study the pattern, and so the calling application is completely kind of secure and isolated from the application being called in the back end, which could be in this case, the fraud providers, right? So that's where you get to a lot of benefit, because now I have the flexibility to connect to different providers and then keep my target systems pretty much pristine.
No, that's fantastic. And that was honestly why I thought sitting down with you was a great idea, because as much as the theme of this API Days in New York is around banking and payments and insurance providers, that tie into fraud and the connectivity that you have to have for every transaction, right, to ensure that you as a business or your business lines are going to be successful, but at the same time, those banks, those payment providers, that they're going to be successful. And that tie-in, I think, is really important, because we honestly sometimes sort of live in our silo of just the retail side or just the banking side. And yet, when we think about, API ecosystems, it's not just for one purpose, right? That is actually what was the strategy of yesteryear of I just live in my world and, throw it over the fence and, worry about whatever the bank needs to do, right? It's this intertwined ecosystem that becomes extremely important for both businesses to actually be successful, and sort of that age-old adage of rising tide for all boats, if you will. So you talked a little bit about seasonality and the need to be able to scale. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more on how important that is during the peak season, and is there, again, something that you've done within your solution? You talked a little bit about sort of the fraud application component being separate. Is there anything else that you've done that's unique to your solution to ensure that you can have that scalability, particularly during your peak seasons?
Yeah, certainly. So seasonality is really completely nonlinear. So those 3-4 months, pretty much we do more than 50% of the business. It's so skewed in retail. Outside of course, there are always promotional events and things like that happening throughout the year these days. But having said that, still those 2-3 months is everything for a retailer, and so you can imagine the scalability on demand that is required. So. Whether it is, for example, the other area that we converted to an API-based architecture is posting sales from our point of sales solutions. So earlier, and like I said, we had various touch points. Point of sale, it creates a file. The file will then get posted to a server. The server picks it up, and then we drop it into another place, and then that gets ingested through a transformation layer and so many different hubs. Finally, it makes its way to ERP and reporting and all that, right? Now, with the API-based solution, which used to take 30 to 40 minutes end to end, now we are down to like almost real time. And we say 5 minutes, but it's just real time, because point of sale directly calls the API and post sales. And that's huge, because for a retailer, especially imagine Thanksgiving Day and you're walking into the store, you can imagine the number of people trying to shop at the same time. And now you are real-time capturing data, and you're real-time able to react, right? Whether it is inventory or running real-time promotions or giving discounts or whatever it is, you can see store performing real time and you can react to it. So that is a huge benefit, and we just converted, and it's just unimaginable. The other thing is, imagine the support, right? If things broke down earlier, so many teams had to get involved, because there is so many specialized skill sets that have to come together to troubleshoot one order posting path. But now it's just nothing, right? You just call an API. If the API works, we're good. And everything is sitting within that one CP4I platform. And this has been huge for us. So everything, because messaging, transformation, it's all contained within that API mechanism. So this is an example of how we have been successful. And see the number of calls, right? Because now you can scale, because there's files and restrictions and running time jobs and all that is out of the window. It's just API, and you just scale. And it's ready to, we pressure tested, we performance tested for anticipated volume, and we know it's ready. We know how the containers are going to elastically expand. So we're in a very good spot right now.
No, you brought up a really great point, and I don't know that folks understand that all the time, in the sense of, there's the brick and mortar business and applications that have been in existence because you emerged as a brick and mortar business, and then there's your online business, right, and being able to purchase online, and again, peak seasons. And then there's the third element, which is I'm going to buy online but pick it up in the store, right, which adds yet another complexity layer to checking those transactions, ensuring that you can scale appropriately. And I think that's an element that's missed sometimes in terms of all of the checks and the balances and the security and the governance that's needed for a solution, particularly a retailer, and how that connects even back to the banks and ensuring that all those different payments are actually viable and capable of happening. We've got just a few minutes left. Your Tapestry's gone live. This is running in production. Can you talk a little bit about the business benefits you're actually seeing as a result of this going live?
So ultimately, in a retail industry, it's all about customer experience. So because of this type of real-time API-based landscape and integration, see, we are able to better serve inventory positions, right? Because we now post sales, so that adjusts inventory. So to your point, Omni, right? So I'm on the website, I'm saying, can I get this product from the store? But now I'm so much more closer to the actual inventory position. So ultimately, customer experience, if we look at it from that lens, everything gets much better and faster, whether it is ship confirmations, whether it is your order status, or just pulling up order details, or because people are making decisions very, very fast as they go through your website. Many times they have multiple tabs and browsing competition, right? So now they see the product available, they're going to go for it, right? Or they see that you can ship the same day, they're going to go for it. So these decisions are so fast, and with the mobility and everything enabled on your phones and everything. So the shopping experience has expanded so much. So it's a big challenge for each retailer. And unless we have the ability to serve with that kind of speed and agility, we're going to lose that customer.
Yeah, and obviously, lost customer is not just a lost customer for you, but it's also a lost opportunity, again, on the payment provider side. So, you talked a little bit about the success that you're having, particularly in the importance of the customer experience. You chose an API-led, solution or approach to your business challenge. What does growth and success look like for the future, right? What's next for Tapestry?
So we are one of the first to implement CP4I in partnership with IBM, and it's been great so far. And we are going to build upon this capability, certainly take this to the next level. We have started our journey. I can't say we're fully there, but we have tons of other, all these different hops, that have to be converted to pure API architecture. So the opportunity is huge, and we are continuing that journey. And thanks to this great partnership, we are certainly looking to expand this footprint.
Yeah, no, and we certainly appreciate your partnership as well. And hopefully this gave everyone a sense for, again, I've said this, bringing together worlds, right? The API economy is not just about a single industry. It's not just about a single application, right? It is about expanding your business for even the greater economy's business, right? And there's new connections that can happen, no pun intended, really, right? About how you can take advantage of APIs and, where that expands on into an event-led, driven architecture, and where that expands into different kinds and ways in which you want to expose information so that you can continue to expand out, right? There's what you know today, and there's really what can be the future of how you can grow your ecosystem and grow your top line for your business. And thinking about these different ways, whether it's through customer experience, different omni-channel experiences that you can create, and that connectivity back to, fundamentally where money moves the world around, right? So, at the end of the day, I think, really appreciate the partnership. I think hit on a lot of different areas of security, governance, fraud, and all of the importance of an API management solution so that you can ultimately drive your business, right? Because the last thing you want to do is take credit for, we've been able to move $100 million around or sell $100 million worth of goods, and yet half of it was fraudulent or half of it got returned because it was an invalid transaction or you didn't have the inventory in the first place. So again, looking forward to the continued partnership of how you continue to grow, how you continue to take advantage of API management, and really for the audience of how you can think about different ways in which you're having to connect into your retailers, your other patient providers as you look to expand out in your ecosystem. So thanks again, Aravind, and sorry for the technical difficulties, but that's, I think, the world that we live in these days of being ad hoc and working on your feet. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Can we take one question? That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one question here.
Thanks, Eileen and Aravind, for your insightful chat. And my question's around the sort of the laggers for, when you have a system that requires real-time updates and API calls. We, recently experienced a lot of supply chain issues, and in my own experience, said you have different vendors and they're sending stuff through EDI, and how do you coordinate those kind of lagged information with the real-time API infrastructure?
Right. No, thank you. That's a great question. So the real-time APIs have to kind of complement what is already in place with the other structures. So some of the, for example, EDI-based integrations which are there, yes, they are there, but they are limited to certain inventory levels and certain positions that we open up. So let's say we have some dropship, for example, if you understand dropship, right? So certain inventories are with external vendors, third-party vendors. So that visibility is at a total level at that point, and that gets decremented. And then when it reaches some safety level, we kind of stop it. So certain things we have to balance, to your point, unless they are ready, and we are pushing them also to open up their API so that we can real-time, dip into their pool as well and say, hey, hey, this is selling, so how do we get your real-time inventory position? But to your point, all vendors have to support this architecture for it to be completely real-time. But from our stores and our own DCs where we control with less external touch points, we're very, very successful. But in certain areas, it is still, you start with certain inventory positions and you have to decrement and wait for that. But people are coming along. Like our vendors are also interested. Nobody wants to do EDI and flat files anymore. So it is getting much better now, definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eileen. Thank you very much, Aravind. We're out of time, and sorry for these technical issues, but you were better than slides, definitely.